working. Love it or hate it, it's something that we are all subjected to. Whether it's here in the United States, or Europe, or Africa, or wherever else in the world, we all must work. It's expected of us to work a job in order to pay for things that we need. We hopefully make connections and relationships along the way. We have a family, buy or rent a house, spending time at work and with the people you made relationships with, all while juggling your own wants and desires. Doing all of this until we retire and spend time with family until we die of old age. Ain't that the life? What if along the way there are hiccups or roadblocks that stop your progress to these goals? You're usually so productive at work, but one day you get laid off, or you get injured, and you can't work anymore. Your partner loses their job. You were pretty much living paycheck to paycheck anyway, and now you're rationing food, scrounging up enough money to pay rent this month. What about next month? You blame yourself for being in this predicament. Why me? Why us? Why can't I do anything to change this? When did I become so worthless? You might be saying these things to yourself, or your partner might say these things to you, or your family, all telling you that if you just worked harder, if you were more productive, you wouldn't be so worthless. But are we worthless? These types of situations are far too common in places like the United States, where I live. In the so-called wealthiest, most powerful country in the world, over 60% of the people in this country live paycheck to paycheck. With prices of basic needs like food, water, and housing getting higher and higher, and wages of working class people being stagnant for over 50 years, it's not that strange for people to be in situations that I presented earlier. In the economic system that we live in today, it's either we produce, whether that be creating a business and selling something for a company, selling your services for a company or your own business, etc. If we don't sell our labor or produce something to sell our labor with, we die. We won't be able to buy food or clothing or a home. Selling your labor, being productive, allows us to live the lives that we want to live, right? If you really want certain products or amenities, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and work for it. What if those bootstraps are taken away? What if you never had any bootstraps to begin with? What if because of an illness, physical, mental, or otherwise, you can't even wear the boots at all? Does that make those people bad? Are they lower beings than us? Are they worthless? These questions and more are what I want to answer in this video. I want to explore productivity under capitalism and see why ideas are cultivated around it, and to see if there are any solutions to these problems that arise. So my dear viewers, sit back, relax, as I take you through a journey through the underbelly of capitalism and see just how we are affected by it. As we go through this journey between capitalism, worthlessness, and you. Oh, hello there. My name is Chad Tyler Roseman, and I'm the CEO of Glass Skies. I'm here to help you be more productive for, well, me. I started Glass Skies back in 2018 when my father gave me this company for my birthday. And ever since then, I've been determined to create a better world for me and for you. In order to create a better world though, I'm going to need your help. Yes, you watching this video. For Glass Skies to reach its goals, philosophically and financially, we're going to need to pump up those production numbers, but of course not without an incentive. For you brave few who hit 110% production for an entire year, we will give you a raise of 25 cents. Can you believe it? Aren't we so generous over here at Glass Skies? So make sure you hit those production numbers so you can help us help you. And don't forget our company slogan, the best for one is the best for all. Have a nice day. Being a productive member of society. Have you ever heard of this phrase before? It's an incredibly common phrase, at least here in the United States. So common, in fact, that I'm sure most people haven't even really thought of its meaning. Being a productive member of society can mean many different things. It can mean being an active member of your local community, following the rules and regulations of places that you go to, creating something for your community to use, and a myriad of other things that it could possibly mean. But this phrase of being a productive member of society has a very particular meaning under capitalism. It essentially means being able to sell your labor for a company to make the company money, and a little bit on the side for yourself, of course. Being productive under capitalism pretty much means doing something that within the confines of the law makes money. This ties into other common phrases such as time is money. The basic inference of this phrase being that if you aren't using your time to make money, then you're wasting your time. Or if you have a budget and you waste time not doing what you're supposed to be doing according to whatever arbitrary task is given to you, then you're wasting the company's money, which in turn can get you fired and not being able to produce at all. Produce, produce, produce. Production is what keeps capitalism running. If there were no surplus of working class poor people in need of money to pay for their living expenses, then there would be no capitalism. But this should tell you something about capitalism in general. Why do we need to work these jobs in order to live? Is there an actual reason for this other than, well, that's just the way the world works? Have you ever even thought about what the phrase living expenses actually means? It means that we have to pay to live. It's like I said earlier in the video, if you don't make money, then you die. Capitalism has created a culture that feeds us information and makes us okay with our own exploitation. Well, that's technically half the story. Because capitalism is a branch of a much bigger culture that has been a mainstay in the world ever since its creation, and that culture being white supremacy. But more on that later.
We must understand clearly when we talk about capitalism, who are the capitalists? As if we understand that there are only a few people who own and control the means of production in the society, then we begin to understand that there are a few capitalists. And these capitalists exploit everybody because everybody works for them. Everybody sells their labor to them. It is by selling your labor to a capitalist that he's really able to exploit you.
This next part may seem like leftist politics 101, but it's important to explain in this video. So for my more advanced leftists, bear with me for a second. But capitalism is a system designed on the basis of exploitation. Wealthy people create businesses, or loan money to people to create businesses, and those businesses need workers in order to function. The main function of these businesses is to make a profit, meaning that it will do whatever it takes to make more money than they are spending, which means that it will extract labor from working class people and give a tiny amount of money to the workers in comparison to the immense amount of wealth that is amassed from these companies and businesses. They give you just enough money to stay alive and work for them, while they make the majority of the money off the back of your labor. So it's not that surprising that capitalism values workers who are productive, because these workers aren't being productive for themselves, even though they may think that they are. They are being productive to the company for making its owners more money. Whenever a company wants to increase the productivity of its workers, it's rarely for the workers' benefit. More often than not, it's for the owners and shareholders of that company. Even if a worker gets promoted, or gets a raise, or even gets benefits from said job, like healthcare for example, or a retirement fund like a 401k, these workers are still being exploited all the same, all in the name of productivity. Not to mention that only a small subset of working class people will ever even get to that point. Most working menial jobs until they die. Productivity under capitalism is pretty much a scam. If you're not productive to capitalism, you die. If you are, you'll only be further exploited by having even more of your time being spent making money for a company. A company that can easily get rid of you and replace you for someone who will do the same workload but at half the pay. Layoffs happen all the time under capitalism, whether that be for the company to make some of its money back by not having to pay as many people, or to let new people in who will work for less money. It doesn't really matter what the reason is. What matters to the capitalist is if they make a profit, and it has to be an even bigger profit than what they made last year, and the year before that, and the year before that. Productivity under capitalism only helps the capitalists. That's it. It may seem like it helps you too, because you make more money than you made last year, but the exploitation stays the same, no matter the field. So productivity under capitalism is a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. If you don't produce for capitalism, then you can't pay to live, and you die. If you do produce, your labor will continue to be exploited until the day you die. Either way, you die not knowing what your life could have been if you didn't have to produce. If selling our labor for pennies on the dollar wasn't our main goal in life. It's a terribly bleak situation no matter how you slice it. But so far, we've only been talking about the productive people under capitalism. What about those who don't produce for capitalism? How do they feel about all this? How does society treat them? And how does society make us feel about them? Oh, I didn't see you there. It's Chad Tyler Roseman, the CEO of Glass Skies. You know, the company that you work for. And I'm here to send out a message to all of the good-natured employees of this fine company. I know you haven't been feeling too appreciated by Glass Skies. You're asking for better wages and pay time off, maternity leave even. And I just want to say, as your CEO, I see you, I hear you, and I appreciate you. These are things that we all want. Better working conditions and pay would be a dream come true, my dream come true. But in order for these benefits and amenities to happen, we need to work together. Come on, guys, work with me here. Don't start a union. That just means that you have no trust in Glass Skies. If you have no trust in Glass Skies, then you have no trust in me. Hey, come on. How untrustworthy is this face? So please, come back to us. Come work with me so you can help us build a better future. I wouldn't want to have to use force here. I mean, come on, guys, let's be civil. But we can't have a union here. If we do, police would be notified immediately. So come on back down to the company. And remember, the best for one is the best for all. Have a nice day. Came up with the idea for this video when I read this manga recently called Muno no Hito, commonly translated into The Man Without Talent, or a Worthless Person. This manga was drawn and written by Yoshiharu Suge, a mangaka who was influential in the Gekiga manga scene. Gekiga manga being gritty, realistic manga that deal with more adult themes, sort of the precursor to seinen manga that we have today. Muno no Hito is about a man named Sukezo, who used to be a popular mangaka. After giving up drawing manga, he lives out in the countryside of Japan, living in poverty with his wife and son. He tries various strange ways in order to make money, but also no avail. His manga is actually semi-autobiographical, because growing up, Yoshiharu Suge lived in the countryside of Japan during the post-World War II era. He dealt with immense poverty and financial issues growing up and throughout his life. It wasn't until he became a mangaka where some of those financial issues started to be alleviated. The idea that this manga tackles is one that is very interesting to me, and to be honest, is an idea that hits close to home, which is the question, if you aren't working, aren't you worthless? Throughout the manga, Sukezo tries to make money in various ways that are outside of the corporate world. He tries to sell rocks that he finds in the river near his house. He tries to sell old cameras that he fixes up, and a bunch of other ways, all to no success. His wife hates him for abandoning his job of being a mangaka and not being able to provide for her and his son. She's pretty much the only person working throughout the manga. She often calls Sukezo worthless and a waste of space, all because he can't produce to provide for his family. But it started to get me thinking, is a person who doesn't produce in the capitalist system a worthless person? A Muno no Hito? Well, the capitalists certainly think so. If you cannot hit the production numbers needed to meet the company's quota, then you're out of there, and will be quickly replaced by someone who can do it better and faster than you. But does that make you as a person worthless? Well, no, it doesn't make you worthless. People are so much more valuable than what capitalists think of them, but it doesn't always feel like it. When you are producing for capitalism, our culture of non-stop production makes us feel like we're being left behind, that we actually are a waste of space. It's in the minds of millions of people, not only in the United States, but other capitalist countries too, that if you are unemployed or make enough money just to get by, then you aren't enough. Whether that be you aren't man enough to provide for your family, or you aren't disciplined enough in order to get a job, or that you aren't smart enough to be employed. With all of these voices in your ear, and this pressure of needing to produce in order to live, you're going to start thinking that these comments are true. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't have what it takes. If I don't compete and work a job somewhere, then who am I really? Do I deserve to be here if I'm not contributing? All of these questions and more put an immense amount of working class people in order to succeed. And if you don't succeed, well, then that's when the worthlessness comes in. That's when you start to feel like a failure. The fact that our production is in connection to whether or not we live or die adds to that pressure as well. We literally call it our livelihood. Not working means not eating. It means not having a roof over your head. And if you aren't working for whatever reason, you start to think that you don't deserve those things. So you try to live with less because we think we deserve less. And because if you don't, we're going to be put out on the street even faster. Don't even get me started on feeling like a burden on others. Other people having to support you because you can't support yourself. Trust me, it feels awful. Even if you aren't, you'll start to see yourself as a nuisance. Because why wouldn't you be able to support yourself? Despite how expensive it is to support yourself nowadays. Being seen as dead weight that other people have to carry is a surefire way to making yourself feel worthless. Your productivity is low, so do I even deserve what I have? Do you deserve to be here at all? Now, it doesn't always get this extreme, but unfortunately, it does more often than not. There are studies showing that rates of depression and anxiety are higher amongst unemployed people than employed people, and it isn't hard to see why. With the combination of everything I spoke about already, on top of the expectations that people in your life or society may have for you, or even expectations you may have for yourself, not being able to hit those with the added bonus of possibly dying because of it, will certainly make you look down on yourself. And other people, they might look down on you too. Another element to this feeling of worthlessness that I thought of is the lack of purpose in life. Producing. Working at any job may be menial, entirely meaningless. It doesn't contribute much to society as a whole, but it gives you something to look forward to every day. It gives you purpose. I may not have much else going on in my life, but I'm needed here at work. I have a purpose here. If you lose that job, you lose that purpose. And that can send you spiraling down the worthlessness sinkhole until you can't see a way out anymore. I feel like this is incredibly common, especially here in the United States, but I know that it happens everywhere around the world. I'm sure you've heard stories of people being laid off or a worker getting hurt on the job and they can't work anymore. People completely lose themselves in this process, spiraling into depression and anxiety, coming from this lack of purpose, and everything else that I already mentioned, like being seen as a burden and as a waste of space. I believe that finding purpose and meaning in a capitalist system is incredibly challenging. Because what use is looking for your purpose in life when you have bills to pay and food to put on the table? Since we're in a constant state of survival, whether we know it or not, finding meaning in life isn't high on most people's priorities. Capitalism is sort of designed for this, because capitalists need an obedient class of workers, not to question what's going on around them, and just work until they die, or are replaced by other workers, if not by robots and AI. Your purpose in life? Your purpose in life is to work for me. And to be fair, many people find purpose in their work. They take pride in it. They take pride in what they do and see themselves as contributing to their communities. But take that job away and what purpose do they have? Finding a way to separate the purpose of our lives from our jobs under capitalism will give us a leg up in understanding ourselves and our needs, while also understanding the world around us and how capitalism hijacks our minds to conflate the two. We just might be able to see a way out of this if we do. Now I want to focus on worthlessness in a different way. What is the main thing that people say when a homeless person is begging for money on the street? I'm sure it immediately popped in your head, right? They say, get a job, right? But bear with me here. What does that actually mean? Especially to a homeless person. What people think that they're saying is pull yourself together. You're an able-bodied person. You should be able to provide for yourself. But what they are actually saying is join the capitalist machine. And if you don't, you deserve to be homeless. If you don't apply yourself, then it's your fault. You deserve to be homeless out on the street. You aren't worthy enough of my respect. If you got a job, maybe you would get it. Once you realize that most homeless people are homeless because of lack of resources allocated to impoverished communities and various mental health and addiction issues, that saying of get a job becomes less and less viable. It's like Martin Luther King Jr. said.
I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading.
Taught us as children to see homeless people as nasty and dirty, that they should never talk to them. So that subconsciously, or in some cases consciously, you see that these people are beneath you. They somehow have less worth than you who lives in a warm house. With the amount of money that our government has, it is possible to eliminate homelessness in the United States for good. Give every single homeless person a place to live, set up programs so that they can learn skills, and send them on their way so they can be active members of our community. But since capitalism values profit more than people's lives, our government funds wars and imperialism throughout the world so that the United States can steal more resources for companies to use. Being seen as worthless under capitalism allows for people to make judgments about others and create stereotypes. Most of these stereotypes leading to racist and classist ideas about other people. This is where the white supremacy comes in. Now, white supremacy in this case doesn't have much to do with white hooded men hating on black people, though it has a little bit to do with it, but I digress. In this case, white supremacy is broken up into two broad categories, one being the systems in place that uphold white supremacy, like the unfair sentencing of people of color in the United States justice system, and over-policing of poor, mostly black and brown communities, with the second category being the culture and values of white supremacy. Think things like cis-heteropatriarchy, for example, and the ideas around race, gender, and sex espoused by traditionalists, or people with common sense. Black and brown people of this country are affected by this the most, due to the long history of slavery and racism, where black people were seen as private property, an idea that only exists under capitalism, by the way. Black people were not afforded the same resources and opportunities to flourish under capitalism like many white people did.
I feel that the reason why racism is so blatant and has been a part of the history of black people from the time we were first kidnapped from the shores of Africa is because it has helped those capitalists gain more and more profit.
Which causes inner cities to this day to still be made of poor black and brown people, or at least the ones that haven't been gentrified yet. If they want to get those opportunities, then they have to be seen as worthy to the white people that usually own the companies that give people jobs. This means cutting their hair, buying a suit in some cases, code switching, meaning that they have to talk differently than how they usually talk to appease the white corporate culture that they have been brought into. It's essentially just making yourself as palatable to cis-heteropatriarchy and whiteness as possible in order to get and keep a job. If you don't, if you act or look more visibly queer, if you talk a certain way at the job, if you look a certain way that's not palatable to whiteness, then you are seen as less than, less worthy as a person. Racists like to point to the black community and black culture, saying that these are the things that are keeping us where we are. If black people just didn't glorify violence in hip hop, then we would have gotten farther as a people. This is complete bullshit. Crime is not something that is inherently a part of black culture. No matter what these crazy, racist, anti-woke idiots have to say, crime comes from poverty and low access to resources, such as food, shelter, clothing, and any other vital things that we need to survive. Black communities across the country have been lacking these resources for generations. So obviously crime is going to come along. It has been proven that allocating these resources to poorer communities lowers crime rates. But just like before, with homelessness, profits are more important than people. These people aren't worth the money that they would need to spend on them, so they just don't do it. Not being able to produce makes you seen as less than to other people and to the capitalist system. If you're a man and you aren't providing for your family by producing, then you're less of a man. What kind of man can provide for his wife and kids? This thinking is also white supremacist in nature, because under cis-heteropatriarchy, the man provides and that's final. Lord forbid if your girlfriend makes more money than you, then you're really worthless as a man, aren't you? These are all lies. Capitalism makes you see these people, these poor, impoverished people in need of help, as worthless. What does this thinking actually do to people? What does being seen as worthless, especially in the case of not being able to provide and produce, do to people? One way that I found while researching this video was productivity guilt. This is something that affects everybody. Productivity guilt is the idea that you feel guilty and anxious because you aren't working as hard as you think you should be working, leading to behaviors like overworking, or sometimes in my case, not being able to work on anything at all. because you're so anxious about not working. Productivity guilt can affect you whether you have a job or not. But I feel like if you don't have a job, it just exacerbates this idea that you are worthless. Because you have this idea in your head that you should be working, but are unable to due to various reasons. But why have this guilt in the first place? Well, like I said before, under capitalism, if you don't produce, you die. Which would definitely give anyone anxiety and look down on themselves if they aren't producing. That is precisely the problem. Because not producing under capitalism means death. The fact that you aren't producing is going to keep you in this cycle of fear and anxiety until you start producing. It's essentially a Jedi mind trick, because this cycle isn't real, but it's made real by the systems put in place by capitalism. This worthlessness can be used to justify your own self-destructive behaviors, like in the manga Muno no Ito. Sukezo has the skill of creating manga, so why does he refuse to use it? Well, because to him, the artistry behind manga is being corrupted by the ever-increasing commercialism rising in the manga industry. He sees his manga as more than just a product, so he refuses to create for any of these commercial magazines. This leads to Sukezo trying to make a quick buck in other ways, but he always fails in the end, and refuses to do anything about it. This reflects the thoughts that Suge had when he was going into the manga industry of the 70s and 80s, where manga was becoming more commercial entities, and not art pieces. But there's another story in this manga that goes into even further detail about self-destructiveness. One of the characters tells Sukezo to read the story of Seigetsu Yanaginoya, famous haiku poet who lived in his hometown. The story of Seigetsu ties directly into the themes of producing versus worthlessness that is so prominent in the manga. When Seigetsu was living in Ina, he was very popular and became famous for his beautiful poetry. But one day, he disappeared and began traveling the countryside of Japan again. While he was traveling, he did not write any new poems. After he stopped producing, he let himself go. He didn't bathe anymore, he was usually drunk, he didn't write anymore, and often begged on the street for money. The people of his town and beyond started to look down on him, shun him, see him as worthless. Those who once saw him as an equal now couldn't stand the look of him, all because he didn't keep up the image of Seigetsu, the great poet. But why? Why did Seigetsu do this? Well, my interpretation of the story is that Seigetsu was a lot like our protagonist, Sukezo. By refusing to work for the machine due to their own reasons and their pride, they found their self-destructive habits. For Seigetsu, it was drinking and traveling by himself. For Sukezo, it was trying to make money off of all these random schemes, both of them being seen as worthless for not doing what they do best, which is produce art. It's very interesting to see this side of being seen as worthless, because it's not something that you see very often in media, or in real life for that matter. But Sukezo and Seigetsu both didn't want to produce their art because of the commercialism that became a part of their fields. Sukezo didn't want his manga to be seen as products. Seigetsu didn't want the pressure of being this great poet and to be a part of high society. Both of these artists stopped producing for capitalism because of capitalism. They wanted to break away from it, to rebel against it in any way that they could. So by not doing what everyone expects of them, they are somewhat free of the shackles of consumerism. I say somewhat because they still live under capitalism, and because of this, they would go through hardship, which is exactly what is happening in the manga, and it's exactly what's happening in the real world. Capitalism insists on making the lives of people not producing for it a living hell. It convinces us that these people deserve that hell because they put themselves in that position. Why would they not work? Why aren't you applying yourself? Get a job. They're not realizing that one, more often than not, they didn't put themselves in that position. And two, that this person still has value. It's sickening and heartbreaking that this is the case. But it's unfortunately the world that we live in. But it doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to live like this. We can choose to do something better. Hello, my name is. You already know my fucking name. I'm sending a message out there to all my so-called workers who are trying to take over my company. You have no idea what's coming to you. You have no fucking idea who you're messing with. I've been a CEO of this company for 15 long fucking years. You think I'm just gonna roll over and let you take over my company? Just steal it right from under me? I work so hard to keep this company running, to give all of you a job. If I didn't do the tiring, exhausting work of hiring all these assistants to run the company for me, they wouldn't have a job to take over. Means of production. Means of production, my ass. You can take your means of production and shove it. You think you can do this to me? You think you can steal from the golden god? Who the hell do you people even think you are, huh? You type on your little computers. You work in my warehouses where there's no bathrooms in them. You do the same tireless, meaningless, menial job over and over and over again. You think you deserve to steal from me? Well, I won't take it. Now I gotta fucking fight it. So you know what's gonna happen now? You know what's gonna happen now? The police is coming down here right now and it's shutting all this shit the fuck down. I don't need you. I can hire an entire new staff of troglodytes who can do the same fucking job with no difference. If you don't work for me, you put a stop to this. I swear I will not rest until every single last one of you is in a fucking grave. Have a nice day. Now, just what do we do about all of this? It's a tough question to answer, but before I get to that, I will start with this harsh reality. The fact of the matter is, we still live under capitalism. As long as we live under that system, we have to abide by its rules. Like I've stated many times before in this video, if we don't, then we won't live to see tomorrow. So let's just start with that point. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't things that we can do to combat capitalism. First things first, I think education is the most important thing we can do to start to change this. Fred Hampton really said it best.
Jomo Kenyatta formed the excellent revolution with no education. And on the day of the end thing, Jomo told the motherfucker, said, well, you can educate, hate the enemy, but I'm your brother, I'll help you lead the revolution, now I'm gonna oppress you. Another example, Papa Doc in Haiti. Papa Doc in Haiti hated everything white. Man, you couldn't put this white paper in front of Papa Doc's face, but he moved all the white people out and he took over and be oppressed. He did, causing no education. And the people that had been educated, they just said that we don't hate the motherfucking white people, we hate the oppressor, whether he be white, black, brown, or yellow. So we got to know the educational program to find out what it's going to be in the finale. A lot of people, Jomo Kenyatta is called never a revolutionary, but an ex-revolutionary. So is Papa Doc. They brought on a successful revolution. That thing in the Mao's was a bitch. Bantu freedom fighters, all that kind of action. But what we're saying is that it's the end. That you don't judge Castro now. You can't do it. Nobody in this room could judge whether Castro's going to be a revolutionary or not. You know what I mean? We're talking about things, you know what I mean, with China, the People's Republic, and even at the stage they're in now, talking about even going on further into a communistic state. That's what we're talking about. Those are revolutionary. So we got to understand here the educational program that you have to be able to figure out whether it will go on the right lines, where the people will end up in a situation where they can be able to really control themselves. You understand what I'm saying?
Educating people on how capitalism is affecting them and how white supremacy is a big factor in that is mandatory, in my opinion. Not everybody's going to like it, but it needs to be spoken about, or nothing about our conditions will change. Capitalism cannot end without an end to white supremacy. Now, I don't have all the answers as to how society can be ran after capitalism and white supremacy's fall. I have a pretty good idea, but it's not entirely clear. So I don't want to focus so much on prescriptions to capitalism, because we'd be here all damn day hashing it out and debating on what exactly we should do. So I want to stay on theme and discuss how we are valuable as people outside of the capitalist model. I feel like capitalism has skewed how we value many different things. Ever since we are young, we are trained to see divisions in people, mostly between different economic classes and different races. These divisions make us value certain people and certain objects more than others. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have preferences and that you should value everything and everyone in the world, but we should be second guessing why we value certain things in the first place. Why value people with more wealth than poor people? Why value whiteness in comparison to other races and cultures? And why do we even have these types of divisions in the first place? Because to be honest, most people don't even think about these concepts. These divisions are self-evident to a lot of people, and they never question why that is. It is not even their fault. Capitalism and white supremacy wants you to not think about your value systems and why you have them. It's supposed to be invisible to you. You are a cog in the machine, and these facts are true. And as long as you follow the directions and listen to us, you'll get by in life just fine. But as many people are seeing, as we are living under late-stage capitalism, this is just not the case. The way we value people in capitalism is so antithetical to what the reality actually is. People are valued by what they can provide to capitalism, as opposed to just their humanity. In this system, we are stripped of humanity constantly. It doesn't matter the fact that we need food and water and shelter to live. If you can't help us make money, then we don't need you. You ever wonder why being nice to poor or homeless people and giving them food or water is seen as something that's so outside of the norm? Wow, you must be such a swell guy for buying that homeless man food. You've restored my faith in humanity. How many of you have heard that one before? The fact that helping people out in your community is so rare that it restores people's faith in humanity when someone does it just out of the kindness of their heart should be sickening to you. Bars in hell, that's all it takes. This shows us how capitalism has hijacked our value systems. Because helping people out in need should be a common occurrence. It should be second nature to want to help people out. But our value systems have been so shifted because we always need some kind of payment or for someone to do something for us in return. We see humanity and social interaction in general as an exchange. Not an exchange of mutual aid, but an exchange for profit. If there's no way to be compensated, then there's no reason to do it. I feel like most people feel this. The fact that we should help others out, but don't because of this need for compensation. Don't question it like I said earlier, because isn't this the way that it's always been? There's nothing I can do to change it. And both of these statements are so untrue. This isn't how it's always been. Capitalism is a uniquely European invention, stemming from the end of feudalism and the beginning of the Enlightenment era. Capitalism is not something that occurs naturally, like a lot of economists and capitalists will say. Before colonialism, most of the world did not function like this. Societies were much more communal and would help out people in need in their communities. If someone lost their house in a fire or other natural disaster, they would help them build another house. People shared the food that they hunted with the entire community. They taught each other skills so they can help each other out. They saw value in helping out their communities rather than someone's social status. That's not to say that these communities were perfect and idyllic. Far from it. But the value systems that they had were much more beneficial to humanity than capitalism's value systems. I feel like that's one of the main takes that people should get from this video. That capitalism's value system is not beneficial to humanity in the short term and the long term. The feeling of worthlessness that stems from people not producing comes from the capitalist values and how they see people, especially working class people. We are so much more than what they say we are. We all have something to contribute to the world, whether capitalism wants us to see it or not. We all just have to find out what that something is. And we would definitely have an easier time in doing that if we didn't have to slave away under capitalism and white supremacy. We are not worthless. No matter how people may treat you, no matter what people may say to you, you are not worthless. Every single person watching this video has something to contribute to the world. Whether that be art or designing a city, because Lord knows we need some better infrastructure. Creating the next invention that revolutionizes the world. We all play a part in this world. We just need to find out what it is. Productivity in and of itself is not a bad thing. It feels good to get things done, especially if it's working towards our goals that we want to achieve. This video is not saying that being productive is a bad thing, but that we should be paying attention to what we are being productive for. Under capitalism, production is never for your benefit, because this system is made to exploit your labor in order to make money off of you and pay you a pittance amount so that you can survive another day to work. It's a constant cycle of work and survival, and we are tricked into believing that this is good for us. We are constantly producing for the goals of people that aren't us, working class people. A$AP Rock really said it best.
We, the American working population, hate the fact that 8 hours a day is wasted on chasing the dream of someone that isn't us. We may not hate our jobs, we hate jobs in general that don't have to do with fighting our own causes.
If we were being productive towards our own goals that benefit us and the community around us, then I believe that Earth will be a very interesting and creative place. Imagine what we can do, what kind of world we can work towards if we didn't have to worry about our boss's bottom line in order to live. I know I keep saying it, but I'm gonna harp on it. It's crazy that we have to pay just to live. I'm just saying. The world would be so much safer, funner, more creative, and just a downright good place to live. So we must keep that in mind when we are advocating for alternatives to capitalism. It is important to put the values of helping out your community at the forefront, because if we don't, we'll never be free of this mess. We are worth more than a cruel dog-eat-dog world. We deserve so much better. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. I hope this got you to think about the world that we live in and how we value certain things within it. Dismantling capitalism and white supremacy is very hard, and there are tons of ways to do it according to many different kinds of people. So like I said, try your best to educate yourself and find your own solutions to these problems. A lot of this video came from my own life experiences, as well as my political affiliations in anarchism and black liberation, and queer liberation as well. If you'd like to learn more about any of these things I'll talk about in the video, I left some videos and reading materials in the description section below, so definitely give those a shot. And yeah, hopefully one day, we can be free of this entire mess. Alright y'all, that's enough from me. Tune in next time for something completely different. Peace.